When Mark and Jason ran from a bank heist, they didn't grab a fast car, they chose an ice cream truck. From a lumbering Zamboni to a runaway school bus, these criminals thought they could escape, but every decision turned into a disaster. Watch the 8 most absurd getaway attempts that ended in chaos and capture. It was an unusually hot summer morning when the quiet town of Millbrook was suddenly thrown into chaos. 2 men, dressed in plain clothes but moving with nervous energy, had just finished robbing a small local bank. The alarms screamed through the streets, alerting everyone within a mile radius. Customers had barely escaped, and the bank staff huddled behind counters, their faces pale with shock. Outside, the suspects needed a vehicle that could get them away quickly, but in a twist of poor judgment, they chose the town's ice cream truck parked just a few blocks down. The truck was old, its paint faded but bright with cartoon ice cream cones, and it had cheerful music programmed to play on a loop. From their perspective, it seemed like a perfect disguise. Nobody would suspect a clunky ice cream truck fleeing a bank. As soon as the suspects started the engine, the tinny music blared loudly across the street. It was a sound meant to attract children, not hide a crime. Pedestrians stopped mid-step, staring in disbelief, and children pointed and giggled as the truck rolled past. Neighbors leaned out of windows, watching the bizarre scene unfold. The suspects frantically tried to steer through the streets, their panic growing with every turn. The police, who had been notified within seconds, had little trouble spotting the colorful vehicle weaving awkwardly through traffic. The chase became a spectacle. Cars slowed down to watch, and people pulled out their phones to record the absurd sight of a bank robbery getaway truck decorated with ice cream cones and cartoon characters. The suspects attempted to speed up, but the old truck sputtered and groaned, struggling to climb even the smallest hill. As they turned a corner, they found themselves in a dead-end alley, hemmed in by trash bins and parked cars. There was nowhere left to go. The cheerful music continued to play, echoing off the brick walls as the police closed in. The suspects, realizing they had no other options, abandoned the truck and raised their hands in surrender. The story of the ice cream truck getaway spread across the town like wildfire. What should have been a tense and frightening robbery ended up becoming an almost comical scene that left people laughing and shaking their heads. The combination of poor planning, a loud vehicle, and sheer bad luck turned an ordinary criminal act into one of the most memorable and talked about escapes in Millbrook's history. The suspects' plan, which they had thought clever, had backfired spectacularly, proving that sometimes the dumbest choices make the most unforgettable stories. In a quiet suburban neighborhood, a petty thief made one of the most unusual mistakes in criminal history. After sneaking into a grocery store and filling a bag with snacks and small electronics, he realized he had no fast vehicle waiting outside. Panicking, he scanned the parking lot and spotted what he thought could be his ticket to freedom, a riding lawnmower left by a landscaping crew. It was a small green machine with wide tires and a low seat, clearly meant for cutting grass, not outrunning police. Nevertheless, the thief hopped on, revving the engine with a sense of desperate hope. The mower lurched forward slowly, its engine struggling under his weight. From a distance, the police were already approaching, and witnesses couldn't believe what they were seeing. Shoppers poured out of the store, pointing at the thief as he crawled across the parking lot, the stolen goods clutched in his hands. People began recording the scene on their phones, unable to resist the absurdity of it. A vehicle designed for gardens and lawns was now the centerpiece of a crime chase, and the thief had no idea that it was essentially a rolling spectacle. As the thief attempted to navigate the small wheels over curbs and patches of asphalt, the lawnmower sputtered, occasionally stalling and forcing him to struggle to restart it. Each failed attempt only made the chase slower and more comical for onlookers. Police officers, initially preparing for a standard foot pursuit, now jogged casually alongside the mower, easily keeping pace with the fugitive. The thief panicked, trying to maneuver around parked cars and pedestrians, but the machine's design made it impossible to turn sharply or gain any real speed. By the time he reached the exit of the parking lot, it was clear the plan had failed completely. Officers calmly surrounded the mower from all sides, leaving him trapped with nowhere to go. The thief attempted one final push, but the mower's engine coughed and died entirely, leaving him stranded in the middle of the lot. Police handcuffed him without a single officer needing to chase. The story quickly became a viral sensation in the town. Newspapers and social media highlighted the slowest and most ridiculous getaway in local history. People couldn't stop sharing videos of the thief struggling to escape on a tiny mower while clutching his loot. What should have been a simple theft turned into a bizarre spectacle that demonstrated one simple truth: even desperate criminals can make hilariously dumb mistakes, and sometimes the vehicle you choose can make all the difference between freedom and capture. In the northern town of Forestville, the residents were used to seeing snow, ice, and the occasional skater gliding across the local rink, but nothing prepared them for the bizarre events. One cold night, a man broke into the community ice rink late in the evening, intending to steal expensive equipment stored inside. He thought he had planned the perfect crime. The building was isolated, security cameras were old, and the neighborhood was quiet. What he hadn't considered was how he would escape once he had what he wanted. In a moment of reckless improvisation, he decided to climb onto the Zamboni parked inside the rink, assuming its size would intimidate anyone who tried to stop him. The massive ice resurfacing machine, designed to glide slowly and steadily across ice, was not built for speed or stealth. As the man rumbled the Zamboni toward the rink's exit, the grinding of the machinery echoed through the empty building. The sound alone was enough to alert nearby residents, who peeked through their curtains in confusion. Once on the street, the Zamboni moved at a crawling pace, fumbling over small bumps and potholes. The man frantically tried to increase its speed, but the vehicle was sluggish, bulky, and impossible to maneuver quickly. Lights from passing cars reflected off the ice and snow, making him highly visible, and the engine emitted a deep clanking noise that made it clear to anyone watching that this was no ordinary escape. Police were notified almost immediately, and a patrol car followed the lumbering Zamboni at a safe distance. The suspect, panicked and desperate, attempted to weave through narrow streets, but the sheer size of the machine made turning difficult. At one point, he scraped a fence and got temporarily stuck on a snowbank, leaving him exposed. Onlookers captured the scene on their phones, and footage quickly went viral online, showcasing a criminal attempting to flee on a vehicle no sane person would choose. As the Zamboni continued to chug forward, the suspect began to lose hope. His options were dwindling, and he realized that escaping on such an awkward, slow machine was impossible. Eventually, he surrendered when the police approached, exhausted and defeated. The incident left the town in disbelief and laughter. A night that could have ended in a serious theft became a story of absurdity, showing how a moment of poor judgment can turn even the most calculated plan into a spectacle. The Forestville Zamboni escape became an instant legend, a reminder that sometimes the vehicle you choose for a getaway matters far more than you might think. In a bustling town with narrow streets and busy intersections, a suspect attempted one of the most unusual and ill-fated escapes in recent memory. After breaking into a local jewelry store late at night, he found himself cornered with no ordinary vehicle in sight. In a moment of desperation, he spotted a parked school bus nearby and convinced himself it was the perfect solution. The massive yellow bus, designed to transport dozens of children safely to school, was not what most criminals would consider a practical getaway car, but in his panicked state, it seemed ideal. He smashed the door open, jumped into the driver's seat, and started the engine, unaware of the chaos that was about to unfold. As the bus roared to life, the neighborhood came alive. Its size and bright color immediately drew attention, and the sound of the engine echoing through the narrow streets made it impossible to remain unnoticed. The suspect tried to maneuver through traffic, but the enormous vehicle was cumbersome, slow to respond, and far too wide to navigate tight corners. Cars swerved to avoid collisions, pedestrians scattered, and neighbors rushed to windows to watch the spectacle unfold. The suspect's attempt at blending in had failed before he even reached the first intersection. Police officers arrived within minutes, coordinating traffic control and tracking the bus from a distance. Every move the suspect made was predictable due to the vehicle's size and limited agility. He attempted to speed up, but the engine struggled under the weight, and the massive vehicle could not accelerate quickly enough to escape pursuit. The suspect grew increasingly frantic, swerving through alleys and clipping parked cars, desperately trying to find an open road. Eventually, his plan collapsed entirely. The bus became trapped on a narrow residential street, wedged between parked vehicles and a low fence. Officers surrounded the vehicle, carefully approaching as the suspect frantically attempted to reverse without causing further damage. There was nowhere left to go, and the absurdity of the situation was undeniable. He surrendered, stepping off the bus with a mix of exhaustion, frustration, and disbelief. News outlets quickly picked up the story, showcasing video footage of the massive yellow bus crawling through the streets with its hapless driver inside. The incident became a cautionary tale and a source of local humor, illustrating how a poorly thought-out getaway can turn a serious crime into a spectacle. The school bus escape served as a reminder that size and visibility matter. And sometimes the vehicle you choose for a getaway can be far less effective than you think, no matter how desperate you feel. In a quiet rural town, a man attempted a theft that quickly turned into one of the most unusual chases the area had ever seen. After stealing a few tools and supplies from a farm supply store, he realized that his escape plan had a major flaw. He had no fast vehicle to flee the scene. Desperate and panicked, he spotted a tractor parked nearby. It was a large, heavy-duty machine meant for plowing fields and hauling loads, not for outrunning the police. Despite its obvious limitations, he jumped onto the seat, started the engine, and hoped that the sheer size of the vehicle would help him evade capture. The tractor rumbled forward with an awkward, uneven motion. Its tires dug into the dirt as it slowly crawled across the open farmland. From a distance, the local police had already been alerted, and squad cars quickly made their way to the area. They had no trouble following the lumbering machine, which emitted a loud, grinding roar with every movement. The suspect tried to maneuver across uneven fields, plowing through grass and dirt, but the tractor's speed was pitifully slow. It could barely exceed a brisk walking pace, making the chase both easy for police and oddly comical for anyone who happened to witness it. As the suspect attempted to navigate the terrain, he soon encountered the limitations of his choice. The tractor was not built for quick turns or sudden stops, and every attempt to change direction caused it to lurch or even stall. At one point, he got stuck on a small incline, the engine straining under the weight. Police officers caught up almost immediately, calmly walking alongside the tractor as the man struggled to free it. It became painfully obvious that his escape plan was failing, but his pride and desperation kept him trying to push forward. Finally, after several minutes of futile effort, the tractor stalled completely. The suspect climbed off exhausted and surrendered without resistance. The absurdity of the chase left the police and nearby residents shaking their heads in disbelief. Footage of the incident spread quickly, highlighting a man attempting to escape the law on a vehicle designed for farming, not flight. The tractor getaway became one of the most talked about events in the town's history, joining the list of failed escapes that seemed almost too ridiculous to be real. It was a striking reminder that desperation often leads to poor decisions, and that the choice of vehicle can make or break even the simplest of escape plans. In the end, the man's attempt to flee justice was foiled not by skill or strategy but by the sheer impracticality of the machine he had chosen, making his story a bizarre but unforgettable addition to the world of criminal mishaps.